Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Soul Surgery Podcast. My name is Nikki Clinch, and I am your host. So today I am going to be speaking in a solo episode on a topic that affects every human being. As long as you have a mind, as long as you have a brain, as long as you have a body, this is of interest to you. This is useful to you. And also one of the most unconscious areas in which we human beings get entangled and stuck in our past. So today I'm going to be speaking about blind spots and just going through a kind of like a 101 on blind spots. What is a blind spot? How does a blind spot get created? How does a blind spot impact how we experience our reality, how we experience how life appears to us and occurs to us in our reality? Why does it not work when we keep trying to change our outside life? Why does it not work to try and stop the blind spot from repeating itself and continuing? And how do we break free? I'm going to be speaking so much about how blind spots themselves, we cannot see our own blind spots. Doesn't matter how much you try, we can't see our own blind spots. We can only see what we see. And so we only see the consequences of blind spots, but we don't think of them as consequences. We just think of them as that's our life. So I'm going to be breaking it right down for each of you so that you can start to hopefully gain a deeper awareness and consciousness to what may be a blind spot playing out in your life, or multiple blind spots playing out in your life right now. So this is a topic that I teach deeply on and I speak deeply on in my new book, Surrender with Hay House, is now out for pre-order on Amazon. Surrender, break free of your past, realize your power, and live beyond your story. Surrender is a book where I walk you through your own maturation process. I help you to identify the ways in which your past is still contaminating your present today. I help you identify where your blind spots are and how to start dissolving them so that you can break free, so that you can start to really embody your true power, the power you were born to embody, and start living beyond the story that you have known yourself to be in. So please go and buy Surrender. It's available now in Amazon. The link is below in the notes. And if you love this episode, please leave us a review. Your reviews matter. They help this content spread far and wide. If you have any big aha moments, share with me where they are. I love to hear about your healing. You can write to me in the comments below the YouTube video. You can DM me on Instagram. You can post about it on your social media page and I'll repost it. You can email me directly through my website, www.nikkiclinch.com. And if you love Soul Surgery, please do subscribe because, we want you in the community and your presence here matters. It matters a lot. So thank you for listening. Let's head to the main episode. This is Soul Surgery. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode. It's just me talking with you, heart to heart, soul to soul, consciousness to consciousness, or unconsciousness to consciousness. So today I want to speak about a topic that I think is one of the most important things for us as human beings to gain much more awareness over. Why? Because it affects everybody. Nobody gets out of this one. As long as we have a mind, as long as we have a brain, as long as we have a body, this is of interest to you. Well, it may not be of interest to you, but it's certainly useful to you. And I hope that it would be of interest to you. If you have any kind of inkling that there is more to your life than just getting by to try and solve the next problem or to find the answers to the next problem, then this is something that will benefit you. So, this episode, I want to speak about blind spots. What is a blind spot? How does it impact our life? How does it rob ourselves of our own power? And how does it literally take over your future so that your past is playing out over and over and over again on repeat, like a bad movie, like Groundhog Day? Blind spots. So, like it says on the tin, a blind spot is a spot in which we are blind. It's a point of unconsciousness. It's something that is occurring that we have no sight over, that we have no consciousness over. And it is literally, and I've said this before in other episodes, it's literally like, it's like we're in that particular area of our life, we're walking around, with blinkers on our eyes, like horses have to wear when they're being ridden, with blinkers on our eyes, but we don't know we have blinkers on our eyes. We think we can see clearly. A blind spot is so powerful that we're even blind to the fact that we have a blind spot. We don't know we have blind spots until we know, until we have a shift in perception, until we have a shift of awareness, until we have a moment of awakening. And it is literally an awakening, a waking up from that particular point of sleep where we have been blind. And we don't know we have blind spots. We're blind to our blind spots. We just think that the way in which the world appears for us is just the way it is. And so, how does it become possible to identify a blind spot and then uncover a blind spot and then break free of a blind spot when we can't even see that we have a blind spot? And that's what I want to go through in this episode. And I just want to add, there's only so far that I can take you in a podcast episode, because, really the real power of uncovering a blind spot can't happen on a conceptual basis. It can't happen through understanding. You'll get a lot of understanding, I hope, from this episode. But understanding itself is not enough to create transformation, to create a shift in perception. Understanding is not enough to break a pattern, to dissolve an attachment of the blind spot. Understanding will just give you more knowledge, it will give you more understanding. But then you have to take that understanding and you have to start integrating it into your whole life, into your body mind, into an experience, into an experiential process, which is where real maturation can occur. So this will be the starting point, and then I hope this leads you into deeper places. And I speak very deeply on this topic in my new book, Surrender. Surrender, break free of your past, realize your power, and live beyond your story is a book about dissolving the attachments to the very stories and blind spots that we are carrying, or let's not even say carrying, that we are entangled in. from our past that is contaminating our experience of reality. And so, in sort of layman's terms, our past is living our present. And doesn't matter how many times we try to change things. We change our house, we change our boyfriends, we change our girlfriends, we change our body, we cut things off our body, we literally cut things off our face in plastic surgery. We paste different wallpaper on our walls. We change all these outside things, and yet somehow, even though we changed all these outside things, somehow the experience of who we are in the world and the world in relation to us stays the same. And so our past is contaminating our present and hijacking our future. So what is a blind spot? A blind spot are all the points in our that we are unconscious to, all the points in which we are unconscious to how our past is entangled with our present. There's a helicopter going by. Excuse the noise. A blind spot is where we are unconscious to how our past is entangled with our present. And therefore, having a massive impact into how we experience our life, how we know ourselves in life, how we identify who we are in life, and how life shows up for us in relation to that identification. And so as long as a blind spot stays unconscious, it will continue to have the power over our life. Carl Jung will say, whatever stays unconscious will live our life, and we will call it fate. A blind spot will continue to live our life, and we will just believe that that's the way that it is. And we really do believe that that's just the way that it is. And I'm no different to you. Like, I have been through this multiple times. And so why is it useful to learn about blind spots and start doing the work to uncover them? Because if we don't, our past continues to live our present. And what are the consequences of that? Our past continues to live our present, and who we are in it, the role that we believe we are, the identity in which we attach ourselves to and that we know ourselves in relation to all of this, suppresses the authenticity and the wholeness of who we truly are in order to fit with all of this. So as our blind spot has power over us, we don't have power. We're not living from a place of conscious power when our blind spot is the one that is the thing that has the power and is living us. So the blind spot is when your patterns, when your perceptions, when your unconsciousness is living you, rather than you living with it. One means that it takes all your power. And power, I don't mean is like, He-Man with muscles. I mean like power, the power to be able to make conscious change, the power to be able to make conscious choices, the power to be able to generate a new reality, the power to be able to create your life aligned with what is true for you, what is authentic for you, what is nourishing and abundant and feeds your soul, the power to be able to consciously generate the unfolding of your life and who you are in it. That's real power. Now, that doesn't match up with the way that we've been taught about power, which is we've been taught about power as if power is dominance and power is manipulation and power is control. Well, actually, the truth is that all those things are not power at all. All those things are fear. And so true power is where we get to have a conscious, alive relationship with our own life force and our ability to relate and dance with life. Our ability to impact the unfolding of our life, that's real power. And that it happens in a way that is aligned and authentic to who we truly are. That's real power. And it's led from a place of wholeness, not fear. It stems from a river of healing and wholeness and authenticity and truth, not fear and pain and lack and unworthiness. So let's give an example of how a blind spot plays out. I give this example all the time. You may have heard it. If you haven't, that's great. If you have, you'll probably hear it differently this time. So my husband and I write about this in the book in real detail. So if you are having a similar experience in your relationships or with your parents or with your friends, then please get the book because it'll really help you. My husband and I were having the same fight over and over again for 9 years. And I'm not exaggerating. We were having the same fight over and over again for 9 years. We didn't know we were having the same fight over and over again for 9 years. We just thought we were fighting and both of us wanted to win. Now I look back on it, I can see, it was literally the same fight, the same dynamic playing out over and over and over again, just different details. One day is about the washing up, and the next day it's about the dishwasher, and the next day it's about the children, the next day it's about something deeper like my needs or his needs. But the dynamic that played out was the same. I would go to him feeling like my needs were not met. And I would feel a sense of longing, sadness, pain around it. And I would bring it to him. And in my bringing it to him, I wanted something to change. I wanted to be seen. I wanted to be heard. I wanted it to be fixed, if I'm honest. And then I would come to him to communicate my needs, and he would immediately start feeling controlled and trapped, judged, and like I was disappointed in him. If you really want to hear the depth of the details of this dynamic, then please go and listen to the podcast episode between my husband and I. We released one a couple of weeks ago called Transformational Relationships. So please go and have a listen. He would immediately experience me as controlling, trying to trap him, and that I'm disappointed again. Now, a blind spot is, you see, at the time, I genuinely could only see that he was incapable of taking care of my needs. He is not listening to me. He is not someone I want to be with, and I should find someone else. His blind spot was I am absolutely a controlling, manipulative woman, and I'm trying to trap him or judge him, and he should get the hell away from there as quick as possible. Now, in the moment, we don't experience a blind spot. We experience reality, or what we believe is reality. the experience is real and true. It feels so real. It really feels like to me, he cannot hear me. He cannot meet my needs. I feel a sense of abandonment. I feel a sense of pain inside. I feel a sense of longing inside. And all I can focus on is how he needs to change and speak differently and show up differently and meet my needs and listen and honor. And then all of this experience that's going on inside of me will go away. And that's the blind spot. You see, the blind spot for me, which I have uncovered now and I can see, is that my experience of my childhood, of me being a little girl, young girl, maybe 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, was a direct, identical, an identical experience of this dynamic. I would feel like my needs aren't being met, I'm not being heard, not being listened to, then the longing mixed in with that, and then the wanting for her to see me and to change, and then she has to say it a certain way, otherwise she doesn't hear me, and then the trying to control it and fix it and change it. Now, it was an identical replica, identical to my core, one of my core pains in my childhood. But I didn't see it that way. I see it as this is happening. It's really happening right now, here in my 40th year, in front of me with my, well, it wasn't, it was my 39th year, in front of me with my husband. And in a way it is, but it's all entangled with this past experience that's still playing out within me and getting entangled with my present. And so I was blind. And what was I blind to? And you see, we can't see where we're seeing from. We can only see what we see in front of us. We can't see where we're seeing from. We can't. We can't get behind our eyes and see what lens is projecting out into the world. We can only see from our sight. And so what we see from our sight, we believe real and true. This is really what's happening, right? But we can't see what's generating how we see. We can't see what's generating how we experience what we're seeing. And so what's generating how we experience what we're seeing has all the power, because we're blind, we're unconscious to the fact that something is generating how we are having this experience that we are calling our reality. And so it's living us. And we think it's real and true. And then we make our life choices based on it. I almost divorced my husband, which felt right at the time. But now we've done an awful lot of work on ourselves. And please go and listen to that episode. I'm so glad I didn't, because not only did I realize that he's an absolute wonderful human being that has the ability to show up differently to how I had him fixed, but I learned so much about myself. I uncovered enormous blind spots that were having a great deal of power over my experience of intimacy in the world. And so a blind spot is where we can't see where we're seeing from. I talk about it in the triggers episode. The bus driver drives off, doesn't wait for you. You're running after the bus. and you experience this rage inside of you for being ignored, and all you really believe is that it is the bus driver, and you want to get him, and you want to make him see, and you want to make it different, that he left you even though you asked, for him not to. And you can't see that what's generating that experience, all of it, the whole full body mind experience, the feelings in your body, the physical sensations of it, the thoughts in your mind, and then how your sight, how reality appears for you. You can't see what's generating how you are experiencing that maybe you were a little boy in your childhood and your dad left and you begged him to stay, and he looked at you. It was just a millisecond moment in your life, and he looked at you and he just turned around and he shut the door and he left. And that little 5-minute moment of your past is replaying on repeat, like a stuck record, in little tiny moments entangled here in your present. And that's a blind spot. And you look at what's occurring in the world right now. There is so much chaos, so much polarization that's occurring in the world right now. And, the problem is that it's because there are so many truths being uncovered that are getting entangled with blind spots. And so something that is truthful is being revealed, but the human being that is seeing the piece of information or the piece of truth that is being revealed is getting filtered through the blind spot, and then getting entangled where that person's past is getting entangled with the present. And so that's creating their perception of what's going on, and they really believe it's real and true, and that's the only way, without any real power over having any consciousness to see or even inquire as to where am I seeing from that is generating my experience of this particular moment. Bear with me. If you can't catch it conceptually, because this is big, this is a big conversation. If you can't catch it conceptually, then just let yourself feel it. Don't try and catch it. Trust yourself. This is going to land in a way that may not make sense to you. So, what creates a blind spot? Well, a blind spot, or there's a phrase that's used. What fires together wires together. So, when we have an experience in our past, in our childhood, any time, but the fundamental years are our first 3 to 6 years. When we have an experience in our childhood, and they're fundamental years because that's the greatest growth of our brain development. That's when all our brain development is growing and changing so much and forming. So when we have an experience in our childhood, we only have the experience in the present, but literally the millisecond, minor milliseconds after having the experience becomes memory. You can't have the present in the future. The moment you've had the present, it becomes the past. The moment that you've experienced the present, it's gone. And so the moment you experience something, it simultaneously becomes memory lodged in your mind. And what fires together wires together. Particular kinds of experiences that have a certain level of emotional charge to it fire up your neurons in a way that the neural pathways in your brain wire together. aligned with that memory that you've just had. And the wiring of those neural pathways becomes like an entanglement. So you're a little boy, you're standing in the hallway, and you're pleading for your daddy to not leave you. And then your daddy looks at you, turns away, and shuts the door. That moment fires up a lot of activity, heightened activity in the brain, and your neural pathways start wiring together as a memory of this moment in time. But it's not wiring together knowing it's a memory, it's wiring together that then starts becoming how we experience reality. So the moment that a memory is lodged, there's a concept is created. So in the very moment that you have the experience and then it becomes the memory, there is a moment of, there's a concept that lands that we're not conscious of it, but it happens. It's like maybe you'll say to yourself, "Daddy doesn't love me," or maybe you'll say to yourself, I'm always left," or maybe love gets entangled with being abandoned. Love and abandonment becomes entangled and wired together in one pathway. And so from that moment onwards, your experience of love is is forever entangled with abandonment. And you don't walk around in your life going, that moment in time wired in my neurons, entangled in my neurons, and that now I have love and abandonment entangled together. No, you walk around in your life and you genuinely experience little tiny moments of love entangled with abandonment. And at the beginning, as you're younger, it's kind of subtle and not so strong yet. You see, the older we get, and the older we get and the longer we stay unconscious to it, the deeper the wiring goes. And so the stronger the pattern goes. That's why the older we get, we find that our patterns get stronger. Our triggers get stronger because we're just repeating and repeating. We're kind of we're rerouting the pattern so that it becomes even more entrenched and more entangled. And so as a child, you experience little moments of love entangled with abandonment. And then how does that affect how you behave? How does that affect how you breathe? How does that affect how you know yourself in the world? Or well, maybe I won't share myself. Maybe I won't love. Maybe, or you become extremely needy when you're around anyone that you think that you start to love. And then as you become an adult or a young adult, you fall madly in love, but then immediately, the moment that the love is ignited, there is an entanglement of you always already know that the abandonment is coming. And so how does that affect how you behave? You start becoming over sensitive, you start becoming obsessive, maybe you control, maybe you search in their phone, maybe you start looking at their emails, and then of course that starts generating a certain unfolding in the relationship. And what happens? They leave. And then the moment they leave, you have proof. You see, love, I do get abandoned. And so that wiring becomes even more entrenched. And then the next relationship, you think, I'm going to choose someone who's like the opposite this time. And then you think it's going to be different this time, but this time it keeps coming back again. Your experience of love is entangled with with the terror of being abandoned. And then it just keeps generating and generating and generating. And you wonder why. Is it just a coincidence? And so what actually allows us to start disentangling that entanglement? In my work, if any of you have ever coached with me or come and worked with me or come to any of my programs, um, we have Listening to Life happening in May. I also write about it a lot in the book, and I give examples of human stories of this process. I take my clients through a regression process where we literally go back to the exact moment in the past, and live you have to experience your past in the present. You can't just think it or remember it. You actually have to go back to the past moment and experience it fully right here in the present. That's why you notice when your patterns keep repeating, you keep slightly experiencing the past, but you're so busy trying to get away from it, or you're so busy trying to fix it, change it, avoid it, escape it, that you're not actually experiencing the past here in the present. You're trying to run away from it, or it's experiencing you, it's living you. And so the first way to start disentangling this wiring is you have to experience the original moment here in the present. And when you do, it's like a frozenness. There's like a frozen state from that moment in time that starts to dissolve. And in the experiencing the past and the present, you have a moment of insight where you see how that moment has colored so much of your reality today. And that moment of insight happens inside your brain, that your perception starts shifting about who you are and how you see the world. And suddenly you see, oh my God, I've come into every relationship with the same experience and expectation. And that opening of your awareness starts to literally, the wiring is starting to just soften, just soften, just soften. And then once you have had that moment of awakening, that moment of insight, that's just the beginning. Because the wiring can go back, and it does go back. And this is why integration is the most important part of the process. Then you have to go out into your life. And every single time you get re-triggered, love triggers of an experience of abandonment. Every single time you get re-triggered, you need to live that moment. You have to experience fully all the feelings, all the experience that floods through you from the past. You have to experience it with full consciousness, distinguishing that this is a story from the past. It's not your reality. And every moment that you can truly let it be moving through you without letting it grip, without letting it live your life, you distinguish it as story, then that wiring loosens even more. And then it happens again next week, and you manage to be with it rather than act out, and that wiring changes again. And we are literally rewiring the neural pathways in our brain. And that is the actual definition of rewriting your story. And in the very moment, as the wiring starts to loosen and loosen and loosen, a new story gets wired, where you trust yourself, where you can hold these difficult experiences moving through you. Your whole perception of your mind starts to shift, and everything starts shifting, and then who you are in it starts shifting, and you access a whole nother level of power. And that is the beginning of everything. And we could go our whole life uncovering blind spots, because I don't think it ever stops. But the good thing is that once you've done a lot of this work, then after a while, you're just aware of a blind spot. You're just aware of how the mind works. So you don't always have to go back and you have a consciousness of how the mind works, rather than reality is just the way it is. We see very clearly how we generate, how we see reality. So any of you who want to go deeper in this work, really come and uncover these blind spots, not just uncover them, completely disentangle them and rewrite the story of who you are in the world. Then you can come and work with me on my Listening to Life programs. The details will be in the notes below. Please go and buy the book, Surrender, Break Free of Your Past, Realize Your Power, Live Beyond Your Story. You can come and work with me. I offer one-to-one mentorship. I also work with couples now. So any couples that want to come and do a process with me over a period of time, that's also available. Or you can come and work with me in the Awakening Collective, which is my mentorship community. And all these details are on my website, www.nikkiclinch.com. I hope this has been useful for you. Please do share with me any moments of insight, any aha moments. You can share it in the comments below the YouTube video, or you can write me an email on my website, or you can post about it on your social and tag me so I can see it, or you can DM me. All the details are in the notes below. And yeah, I hope this has been awakening for you. This is what real awakening means. It's literally waking up from slumber. And every moment that we wake up from a blind spot, we come home a little bit more to who we were born to be. And that's powerful. So thanks so much for listening, guys. Bye.